Hi.
Thank you all for coming along this evening. It's great to see so many people here. We're very excited to have the opportunity to talk about the work in the exhibition. I'm Georgie Thompson, and I work in the Irish Museum of Modern Art in the exhibitions department. And I thought that for Eleanor and Chris, I should give more formal introduction so that you get a sense of the breadth of their practices. So I'll read from my notes because there's a lot. So Eleanor McCaughey is an artist based in Dublin. Her practice is multidisciplinary, working in painting, sculpture, mixed media, video and installation. Eleanor has exhibited nationally and internationally, including in recent solo shows at the RHA and Driocht, and in group shows at the Hugh Lane Gallery Dublin, Visual in Carlow, and at Supermarket Art Fair Stockholm and the Richard Heller Gallery LA. She has been the recipient of bursaries awarded by Fingal County Council and Arts Council Ireland, the RHA Residency and Temple Bar Project Award. Her work is represented in state collections, including the OPW and Arts Council collections, and also in private national and international collections. Chris Jones was born in New York, grew up in Kerry, and now lives in Dublin. His work has appeared in anthologies nationally and internationally, including Writing Home, The New Irish Poets, and The Book of Life, Poems to Tide You Over by Daedalus Press. The Irish Independent, New Irish Writing, Responses to Pale Blue Dot and Responses to Hidden Colours, 1988, Felix González Torres by Pilot Press London, The Stony Thursday Book and 14 Poems. He was shortlisted for the Aesthetica Creative Writing Award in 2022. This isn't Chris's and Eleanor's first time to work together, as Chris was commissioned to respond to Eleanor's and Lucy Sheridan's two-person exhibition, Pay No Attention to That Man Behind the Curtain in the Complex in 2022. So maybe later we could talk about collaboration and that process of collaboration, particularly for this exhibition and this body of work. So I thought that we should start at the beginning and think about some of the ideas that initiated this particular exhibition. So Eleanor, I was wondering about your interest in belief and knowing, and maybe belief versus knowing, and maybe the in-between, and how that has informed this body of work.
Cool. Yeah, so the in-between is a good place to be, I think. I come from a very religious family, as you know, and yeah, most people know. I talk about it a lot. So they're very Catholic and quite traditional. So I've always grown up with this sense of people around me having a really strong belief in something, like a God, the spirit world. So it's a real blind faith that my family have. And I always felt that I grew up with it and I kind of just accepted it, probably like a lot of people in Ireland growing up. But yeah, it was that kind of real sense of knowing that they had. But for me, I lost it. So I just couldn't have that blind faith.
Did you have it?
I did.
You were little? Yeah.
Yeah, I completely did. I remember I'd be on the altar in my local church hoping that like Mary would appear to me. So I could be the next Lucia from Fatima or from Castleknock. Yeah, so that was like, it really informs my work, maybe not in a literal sense, but yeah.
And for you, Chris, because I'm not sure that these were your interests beforehand, but the ripple effect of working towards this project.
With the idea of belief as well, like I didn't grow up in a very religious family. My parents are mixed, as in Protestant and Catholic, so there was issues around that. So Eleanor and I talk a lot about, I suppose, our mother's presence in our life, it's a big presence in your life. It's a big absence in mine. My mother's gone 25 years. She passed away. So I'm interested in what goes beyond that, maybe.
Yeah.
So she kind of tends to appear a lot in poems and where we might be in between, or the afterlife, or what exists around that. So I think that's why we connect on a very emotional level as well. And that's why I think we work in a really, really good way. Yeah. And it's a really interesting process to go from being invited last year in March. We were just saying it's 12 months. And I said, oh, it's great, we have a year. And now we're here, and it's like, yeah. So I think it's worked really well. And, I think just through a lot of conversation and sharing.
We work together as well.
Yeah.
And so we'd see each other on the corridors and meet for coffee. And we'd always kind of just talk about, what's on the news. Just different stories about our lives. And I think we connected. And so, and I know, Chris is a brilliant writer, and I asked him originally to write for myself and Lucy Sheridan. We did an exhibition together in the complex, and it was about the Wizard of Oz and the return. It was the return to Oz, where Dorothy goes back to Oz and finds it completely destroyed. So we were kind of getting into that world when we were making the show. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a really beautiful movie. So there was so many aesthetic cues that we were working around, and when I read Chris's poetry, I knew that he had to work with us. So I asked Chris, and that was 2 years ago, was it?
Yeah, 2020, yeah.
Yeah.
3, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
So things have been brewing for a while together in that sense.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, you've answered some of the question that I was going to ask you next, which was about, well, having had the chance to look more at both of your practices in the last few weeks, was about there seem to be so many commonalities and crossovers, and things like your a sense of emotion in work, the presence of bodies and maybe embodiment in work as well, and nature, this vast nature thing, and the intangible. And all of so many things seem to surface, that there seem to be commonalities. So it's a very broad question. So I don't know if there's any of that you'd like to talk about more in particular. I guess the body is also really interesting, I think.
Well, I suppose because we were working alongside each other and talking a lot about ideas, sharing was hugely important. So we had a Google Drive, and Eleanor would upload sketches and drawings, and I would upload writings, and then she would appear with, oh, I painted this last night. And this is I'm inspired by something I had written. And so I had a lot of Eleanor's world in my head, because Eleanor inhabits a very particular, special world, as you'll see from her paintings. Yeah. So even her style of mark making, it comes from a place of emotion, and I think I write very much from the same place.
Yeah, and the sense of breath in your work.
Yeah, and being human, and bones, breath, blood, it comes up a lot. And that comes up in your paintings
the body,
a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah, in this show, maybe not so literal, there's a few figures, but I've been reading a lot about the body and what it is to see the world just through female gaze. A lot of my work was, I kind of channeled a lot of bodily energy into the works, as I had an illness for a long time, I had endometriosis, and so I kind of just lived with that for years. I don't have it anymore, because 50% of people, or 49% of people with endometriosis can get menopause quite early. So you can get early menopause and infertility as well. And so this really was something that I channeled into my work. So it really became bodily. And even, you know, my work became bigger and more physical. So that's kind of, we would talk about that as well. Not having kids as well, you know. And when you're older, you kind of see your friends, you know, moving on and having family. And you kind of feel a little bit like, obviously they're your mates, and it's wonderful. It's lovely to be part of your friends' families. But you do kind of feel a little other, you know, sometimes. And we've kind of talked about that as well. Yeah. So all these conversations and sharing of stories is all kind of just gone into the work. Yeah.
And then I guess the other thing that I wanted to ask you about was this idea of the symbol and the metaphor and motifs, and I know that you have a lot of, so that in both of your work there seems to be a lot of reference to, for instance, animals and a mountain. And I guess it would be great to hear more about that.
I remember one day when I went to visit you in your studio, and we were talking about, because we were looking at, again, the theme of being othered and being different, or existing slightly outside of the mainstream in certain ways. And you had said, you know, the wilderness, you know, are we other within nature? Is nature it, and we are the extraterrestrial? Are we alien? So we started talking a little bit about mountains. I had written a poem about the mountain, which is the title of the show, and Eleanor just went, "That's it, it's the mountain." So, like, when you open your door to a mountain, you're opening your door to allowing yourself to believe things, or allowing something that you're scared of, or some days, some people, every day they open the door, they confront a mountain. So the mountain as an obstacle, or as a sacred place. So it kind of began to pivot around the mountain and the wilderness. So that's where, you know, the birds and all the animals started to come in and started to populate.
It was a real world.
It was,
I was kind of thinking of the mountain as well, like you were saying. It's like a spiritual place, or like it's kind of like this towering up to the heavens, or it's like the closest to God that you can get, or it's like the focus for a pilgrimage, or it's funny, I saw a video the other day. It was I think it must have been in the 70s. The BBC posted it on Instagram, and it was a load of people on the pilgrimage to was it Crowpatrick? And there was people on their bare feet, and it's really, really rocky terrain, and I was just it looked so sore. But like, I suppose it's that idea of like channeling the pain for your sins, or you know, that kind of real Irish thing, or that real Catholic thing. But also like the peak, I've read before, like the peaks of mountains, they're kind of like a symbol for that kind of like ultimate consciousness. But I was kind of thinking, like, it's really in right now, you know, to try and get that sense of transcendence and that sense of spirituality that's outside an organized religion, you know. So we were kind of talking about that as well. And with
I was wondering as well about in your work, there's so much around light, and I know that you have a particular interest in Renaissance and medieval art and symbols of light in that, and what that could mean as something different than we might read now. And as well in your work, Chris, as well, there's an awful lot around light. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I like a lot of my work was in response to your poetry with the light. I could just really visualize it.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much light in yours, so it kind of influenced where I was going with it. But also, I think I can be very maybe over nostalgic in what I write, and I think a lot of memories, and you know, we think back of childhood, there's a certain kind of light that we remember. And then when I'd written one poem and you had said it brought you back to a specific time,
Yeah.
that light.
Oh yeah, was it this one or?
Was it the one with that
one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you talked about your mother and the light in the back garden.
Yeah.
And I just had this weird flashback of me coming home from school. I was in the back garden and we had we took in this stray dog, and he was absolutely mental. And I went around the back because my mum wasn't home yet. So went around the back and I was like, maybe she can't hear me. So I started like banging on the back door, and the dog was like snapping at me, and I was having a meltdown at the back door. But anyway, she arrived and opened the door. But that's kind of about that as well.
Oh, wow. I see the teeth.
Yeah. So I guess like all our memories and you know, thinking about all these things just kind of mesh into
certain prompts just trigger that different things. Yeah.
But I think as well, you were talking when we were in your studio about light in for instance, Fra Angelico's paintings, and light as beings, and maybe they wouldn't be read. The idea of a visitation, and maybe it was something alien as well. And your discussion around the alien, and I know you both kind of are interested in that, and you've done a lot of research.
Yes, well. There was I think we were talking about, there's the court case, I think it was like 2 years ago or something. It was the American, was it the American Air Force or trying to take I think it was the CIA to court to get them to show them like classified files, because they kept on seeing these unidentified objects in the sky that they couldn't understand the technology that they were using because they were so fast, and they just couldn't understand. So it was such a threat. So we were talking about this as well. And then I started, like, you go down these holes, and then I saw these people who were really into medieval and Christian paintings, and they were saying that there's this idea of ancient astronauts, so that we've had visitors from other planets, like, you know, years ago, and that the Mayans represented them in their stone carvings. You can see, if you check out the Mayan stone carvings, they're incredible. Yeah, but really fascinating. But like the motifs are so alien. It's just really interesting. And then there's these conspiracies about, you know, all those paintings of the Assumption or the Visitation just before Mary is not about to give birth, but find out that she's pregnant. The Annunciation, the Holy Spirit comes down. But like all those paintings with the light of the Spirit, there's like loads of forums about these paintings, and we just went down into a hole. Yeah. So just kind of questioning everything.
Yeah.
Like, and I think
Yeah,
that's really important, I think.
Yeah.
You know, because if you were to just be quite black and white about things, or like believing in things without just a blind faith, it can be dangerous, I think.
Yeah. And I think you probably answered this quite a bit, but the fascinating thing around collaboration, I know like both of you have collaborated before and with other people, but I wondered, I think it's always good to find out about people's collaborative processes, because it's not that easy a thing to do, I don't think, from what I know.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Easy peasy. Yeah, no, I think we were lucky. We get on really well, and we kind of come from the same viewpoint of things. Like, I have a background in fine arts, so I really appreciate Eleanor's work. So, and her teams, when we start discussing things, it excites me.
Yeah.
And I was really flattered that she invited me to write for, to commission these poems for the show, and we made a book. We'll talk about that after. I can.
I was delighted you said yes,
Yeah,
Chris.
thank you. Collaboration means that. It's collaboration. It's being like allowing each other to really explore and discuss. We did an awful lot of talking.
I could see that you're both like catalysts for each other. When we were in your studio the other day, just genuine enthusiasm and energy.
And that doesn't work all the time.
No.
Yeah, so I think we were...
But I guess it's interesting how that process works, and
But even going back to the pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, you said you had approached another writer, and she read what the work was about, and she said, I just can't connect to that.
Yeah.
And I thought it was brilliant. I was so excited. It was the Wizard of Oz. So I think it's finding the right, that commonality that we have.
Yeah.
I think we also make quite visceral work. I think we connect on an emotional level. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
How you do it. And so I guess we're probably coming close to time, but I wanted to ask you about your poetry as well, and process around being commissioned to respond to poems and that, or to artworks, and your whole process, I guess. I know it's bigger than that, but the ekphrastic poetry and those ideas.
I was really interested in ekphrastic poetry, which is where the poet responds to an artwork that exists. So I had written some work, like the Pilot Press in London. They did a series of anthologies about work made by artists during the AIDS crisis. Yeah. So it was responses to that, and I found it really exciting to have just a very narrow thing to focus on and really work on that and make it really tight. And that's when you read one of them and then invited me to the complex. But I suppose this is very different, is that there was no artwork to respond to because we were working together.
Yeah, and it was quite back and forth.
Yeah, and it took us a while to really pin down where we were going. In the beginning, we were kind of coming up with an idea every week and getting really excited, and then kind of, bringing it back, and eventually we stuck to the mountain.
I think the same motifs kept coming up in my work and your work. And so we kind of knew how to kind of ground it a bit more. Yeah. Yeah.
I love having a project because it puts fire under me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah. Okay. And I wonondered if you would like to, is this a good moment to maybe read a few of your poems?
Sure. So as I said, we made a book, and it just arrived about 3 hours ago, all of them. So it was quite tight. But so the poems in this are quite short, so I might read maybe 2 or 3. But need glasses for this, bear with me. Okay. Today's papers let us know the trees dream and their leaves sing in your mother's voice, and how winter sunlight reflecting back the years becomes decades, but only the song remains in the same in the normal life of things. There will be moths, small sheets of light that bump gently as you come back through the evening and its breath, colder now than the lake was, its damp knuckle refusing to let you go. The water dips you like a spoon as you empty the whispers of yourself into the rain. But only birds in their elegant loneliness know of your loss and how you hide it like crows in the corners of your bones. So the last home is where the title comes from, and so how can you miss something that is terrifying? There is a name for that, I know. Is there a name for the time before sunrise as you lay there waiting to go home? Or the panic of losing everything you have, only for it to return in slow motion like a head-on collision? Is there a name for when you open your door to a mountain and your lungs become winter?
So I wonder if we should open the floor to some questions. I don't know where we're at with time. I can't see Kevin for cues. But I wondered if anybody had a question.
Could I just ask, Eleanor, you were saying about blind faith and religion and some of the stuff that we used to believe when we were kids was wildly imaginative.
Yeah.
I was wondering, do you think of any of that as being positive for, when you're making art? I think you need blind faith as well. Is any of that helps with your imagination, like any positives in it?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think, Catholicism, all the saints and what they all stand for and all the stories that you hear about them, it's pretty magical, I guess being open to that, growing up, kind of opens the doors for imagination, and I guess I never lost it really. The studio is a great place to just close the door behind you and just kind of play. I find, even when I give workshops to adults, I find to get adults to play, sometimes it can be quite difficult because people are really concerned whether the painting is good or what they're putting out there is any good. But what's good, it should really just, I think, just really come from yourself, and everyone comes at life through a different lens, and just give yourself permission to be yourself, I guess.
But your practice, when you're in the studio, again, back to the studio, but it just seems so exciting to be in your space, and it's infectious, and it must be I don't know, complete outsider to this process because I don't have that, but it must be so exhilarating to have that agency within your own practice and the faith that you might, or maybe that doesn't, maybe the catalyst is something else, but it must also be terrifying to have all this possibility. And yet,
I think the terrifying part is showing people the work. Because you're in your own world in the studio, and I set the barometer in my studio, and as long as I'm reaching it, it's a self-guided thing. But when you take it out of the studio, it kind of becomes something else. Like seeing the work in here, it it becomes something else. Sometimes I feel a little bit like they're my babies, and like it's like I'm a bit detached when you see them somewhere else. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, another question.
I have a question. Thank you for that fantastic discussion. My question is about your gesture and your mark making. It's very distinctive. Could you talk to us a little bit about how you found your way into this way of painting?
I remember I used to paint very. I used to think about technique a lot, or trying to capture something and make it look quite 3D, I suppose. But then my painting started to become a bit like painting by numbers. So during COVID, I saw this interview with McCaughey, and he said that if you're ever stuck, to go back to your childhood drawings. And I was in a bubble with my parents during COVID, so I would visit them. And so I was just asking them, do you still have any of my drawings? They were like, yeah, out in the shed. So I went out to the shed and I saw this one drawing, and it was crayon with it was a rainbow, like grass or whatever, and there was gouache over it, and so the wax kind of resisted that gouache. And I was just thinking how free it was, and it was just really beautiful. So I kind of ditched everything up to that point and decided to just go back to the drawing board, because with COVID as well, it was almost like the world stopped and you could get lost in your practice again without the pressures of galleries or shows or, this deadlines. Yeah. And so because I didn't have that pressure, I really just completely went into tested different mark making, different mediums. Yeah, I really just let go. And yeah, so this is the results now after 5 years. Yeah, COVID is 5 years ago now. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Is there another question? No? Well then.
Okay. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Georgie. Well done.